On today's show, I am joined once again by Brian Schroeder for part 2 of 2 with regard to the NBA draft and reacting to the Hawks winning the lottery on Sunday afternoon. And here we go with part 2.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1715 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you into the night here deep on a Sunday evening into Monday morning. And today's show is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, if you're a new customer, get $150 in terms of dollars in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. And the place to go is FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Also want to encourage you, as I always do at the top of the podcast, to make us your first listen each and every day. Check us out and subscribe to the show anywhere you might find podcasts. That, of course, includes YouTube on the video side, as well as Apple, Spotify, Overcast, and again, anywhere you might find your podcasts. And with that all said, this is actually part 2 of 2. So if you missed part 1, I encourage you to go find that in your podcast player of choosing. But this is a comprehensive conversation from start to finish with myself and Brian Schroeder. So part 1 will make more sense if you listened to that one first and then part 2 after that. But thanks for listening to the program today. Really do appreciate it. Please subscribe to the show if you have not already done that. And without any further delay, here we go with part 2 with myself and Brian.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the only other guy, they're not taking Reed Shepard. I guess you get questions about. I'm just not. Reed Shepard is a very good basketball player, one of the most productive, per minute freshmen in recent history.
Yep.
He's an excellent shooter. He's got great hands, so he get a lot of deflections. He should be able to stay on the court defensively. His shots that he can hit. He kind of reminds me of Kaysen too, in the fact that he's not a point guard in any way. He's not an initiator.
He's not a point guard, and he's 6'2". Yeah.
So that's the issue with Reed Shepard. But he also kind of like Hassel, to be fair. He's the only other guy I would take. I would be like, this guy can play 15 minutes in the playoffs pretty soon. I would take him, and I would think to myself, I am getting a guy he's going to play minutes for me for a long time. There are a lot of teams picking between 8 and 15 that could use him right now.
Yeah, and they're also just better spots for him. I think if I covered a different team, it would be more appealing. I think him and Trey is a non-starter just size-wise for me. It's just too much. Anyway, I like Reed too, but
that's the other guy. And then Cody Williams is weird. He's a weird prospect. He played the second half of the year, obviously hurt. He also had some of the best. He is one of the best off-ball cutter and finisher guys I think I've ever seen. I mean, he's like a 77% finisher at the rim on a lot of attempts. The shot just kind of came and went. He's just kind of goofy. He can't really create for himself. His defense is good. I don't know. He's a guy he's better perimeter. He's a better ISO defender than he is a team defender, which is you want that to be flipped. You want that to be back flipped because team defense is what's actually important. But again, he's 6'8", 200 pounds, 7'2" wingspan, and does do the touch, because it's not just layups. He has his older brothers, Jalen Williams, Santa Clara, or Jalen Dub Williams. I just call him Dub. He's Dub. And he has some of that, Dub has crazy touch. And he definitely has that also. He's not even – if he fills out like Jalen, I think he's a 4 because he's 6'8". I think he's a legitimate 4.
I would like that better for what he currently does.
But if he doesn't, if he's a 3, there are times when he gives me Zaire Williams vibes where it's this guy can't.
Which is not what you want. Yeah.
This guy cannot. And also, Zaire Williams had a bad knee injury his second half of his freshman year, which really hampered him. But I still like Cody. I think I'll say this. Amen Thompson will be number 1 this year. Leonard Miller might be number 2 this year.
You love Leonard Miller.
I love Leonard, but I'm thinking of wing guys. You need a thing. If I'm taking you top 3, this is kind of what I'm getting at with Sarr, Topic, Dillingham, Holland. That's my top 4, and Tichain Saloon might be 5. He may move up and down. But those 5 guys have something in common. They all have something that they stand out. That they have a actual signature skills to stand out with. So Saloon is a little more tentative because the shot comes and goes, but he just has physical traits that are just kind of like
it's about 6'7", 2 wingspan, something like that. 6'8", 6'9". Like
he's probably 6'11".
Yeah, okay.
He's 230. He's huge.
Another guy that would have been on my radar a lot of time.
Yeah. If he could be a center, if I had any confidence he could be a center, because he's not a rim protector, he might be 2 for me. But the fact that he's not, he might just be a full-time 4. That kind of makes him more like Michael Porter to me. Like
Michael Porter without the shooting, you mean? Or without?
Well, sometimes he has it.
Yeah, but not, as you referenced earlier, Michael Porter was a fantastic shooting prospect, like a ridiculous one, and he's
at 37% this season.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's not a real. I think he can shoot. That's a little bit of a difference as far as ceiling is concerned on the shooting.
But yeah, those guys all have something, and like the issue with a guy like Cody, Risa Shea, Modest Buzelis, who else would we talk about there?
Ron Holland.
Oh no, Ron's in the upper group.
Oh, sorry. Who else are we talking about below that? Castle.
Yeah, Shepard, Dalton Connect. Well, Dalton Connect has a thing. Dalton Connect has a thing, and his thing is that he is Bogdan Bogdanovic.
I was going to say there's 2 guys we haven't talked about yet that are not Alex Sarr that people will ask about or have already. One is Connect, who is really old and I think is going to work in the NBA because he's
got long arms and he's a pretty good athlete. So he's
the Bogey comp is actually I like a lot. Now the Hawks already have Bogey, and I don't think I think I've seen almost everyone in the top 10 in my mentions in the last 7 hours mentioned. But for Connect at number 1 overall, I don't think it's a hard sell to say he's not going to qualify for that. The other guy though, I have been asked about, and I think you know where I'm going. It's Donovan Clingan.
Because Kendrick Perkins said that.
Well, even beyond that, though, you know as well as I do during the tournament, and we talked about this. I have a message from you that we talked about this. He went from a consensus mid to late lottery guy for a lot of people to suddenly he was going in the top 3 in all these mock drafts, and he was really good in the tournament, and they won the championship, and he was awesome. I get it.
What did he do that was different?
That's what I'm saying. Really, that's why I teed it up that way, because like I think he's kind of the same player, and it's a really good player. Like his defense is really, really impressive. But
he's a guy that I would draft for need with if I was between say 10 and even like 8 or 9 and 20.
Like the Grizzlies were
for him. The Pelicans, or like we need a center. We need a center.
And if the Hawks had been in that range, I would have understood it. Like if they wanted to just be like, all right, we want to move on from Clint. We don't want to give the entire reins to Kongu. I think he Kongu and Clingan would have made a lot of sense together. Mm-hmm. For me, at number 1, I would not think about Donovan Clingan. That's me personally. No. I think you agree with me. I know from already what I've heard from people still want to know if Clingan's going to be in the mix, and maybe he is. I'm not saying he's not in the mix for the Hawks. He wouldn't be for me. I think it's just too.
No.
The profile is one where like I think he's going to be a starting center in the NBA. I think he's.
I'm not taking Walker Kessler top 5.
Well, that's the comparison. It's like, okay, he's a 25-minute a game player.
That's the comparison. That's the comparison. But to be fair, he is 35 to 40 pounds heavier than Walker Kessler and a worse athlete vertically than Walker Kessler.
That's not
my issue with Clingan as a drop big. And I think he did have some conditioning. The conditioning is a little better. He had gained some weight in the offseason because he was hurt. And he did noticeably lose weight and get a little springier. But he's not very good at backpedaling and jumping, which I've always said
you're going to need to be able to do that. Yeah.
That is the number 1 skill for a drop big. You know who is excellent at that? Brooke Lopez. Jumping while moving backwards.
Got a lot better. And look, like just to say it out loud, he was an incredible rim protector in college.
Oh, terrific college player. Like he will be if you run at him and you don't get him moving, he will block your shot. Yeah, he will kill you.
So there's a lot of positives there. Like he was awesome on a permanent basis. There is the questions you mentioned, the weight. There's questions about like how much he can play. Because even at UConn, even this year, as he was, the first year he was the backup, so it was easier to see. This year he still was not playing more than 25 minutes a game in college, and it wasn't like they didn't need him. And obviously they were awesome, but like he didn't have the same kind of backup as him. Like there was a drop off.
Yeah, Samson Johnson is a guy who fouled out all the time too.
And I see actually now I'm reading this is your note about comp to to Zubac with the Clippers. And Zubac,
I like that.
By the way,
is
a really good – that's your comp, and I see that. And by the way, Zubac is underrated and actually quite good. He's a starting center in the NBA. He's a good player. You don't take that guy number one or anywhere in the top 3.
You don't take Jakob Poeltl number 1.
No. So, and look, I get why people like Klingon. It's just a little bit aggressive for me. So I want to say it out loud because people were asking about him, and he's the one guy we hadn't talked about yet. So there you go. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's where to take all time now in the NBA and NHL. FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 in terms of dollars you can bet on hoops, baseball, hockey, and so much more. Bet on all of your favorite baseball and basketball players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and much more. The app is really easy to use. They have everything that you're looking for across the sports betting space. That includes over-unders and money lines, player props, future bets, game props, and much more. The app is safe. It's secure. They cover the entire range of sports as well at FanDuel. That includes the NBA, the WNBA, NFL, college football, MLB, college baseball, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and much more. And now is an awesome time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And all you need to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. One more time, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's time for some Alex Sarr talk. I make people wait this long. I think everybody knows this. We talked about it at the very top of this conversation. You have him #1. That's not a secret. He was the one guy
since September.
I did know that too. He was the one guy coming into the lottery where basically there was no chance he was going to fall beyond the top 3. I didn't think, no matter who got the first pick. Mm-hmm. That's the feeling I was getting. Even on the NBA guidance that they sent out, he was in his own mini tier on what they sent out.
Yep.
If you look at all the boards, even, we talked about ESPN having research first. Even if the people don't have Sarr first, he's in everyone's top 3 that I have seen.
I think if you did a consensus board, he would be he'd average out at
pretty obviously. I mean, I'm not saying he's #1 on everybody's board, but he's always in the top 3 of everybody's board. It feels like to me. You have him #1. I said before on the emergency podcast that I did earlier today, I have him #1. What's the pitch, and then we can kind of drill down from there.
The main story of this draft class for me has been waiting for someone to challenge him, because it's not like he is not. I said he's in the same kind of type of prospect for me as Claxton, Jaren, Chet, Evan Mobley. I probably have him 3rd of those 4 players. If they were all in the same class as prospects, I probably have Mobley and Jaren ahead of him. Or I'm sorry, he'd be 4th out of 5. Mobley, Jaren, Chet ahead of him, Claxton behind him.
I will say though, you loved all 3 of those guys you just put ahead of him in the draft. I almost
had Jaren and Mobley 1. Yeah, and
that's what I'm saying. People
they're all number 2. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Like, for me. Yeah,
those are all the good players already now. But I'm saying for your process in particular, you were higher on those guys than the consensus was. I think all 3 of those guys.
Maybe not Chet.
Sure. Maybe not Chet, but you had him up there. It wasn't like you was any risk there. No, so anyway, and the comparisons, like you mentioned, Jared, you mentioned Mobley. Those are the ones that I've heard and put out there.
The thing I will say, that what I'm going to say about Sarr right now, this is not hyperbole. He is a better athlete and is faster than all of those guys.
Which is a pretty impressive thing to say.
He is the fastest 7-foot basketball player I've ever seen in my life. Like end to end, side to side, he's unbelievably fast.
Helpful tool.
Yeah, and he's legit 7 foot, 7'4", 7'5" wingspan, and like he just is a guy. Like the thing with Mobley, the Mobley comp too. It's funny that people keep talking about Mobley's offense like he's killing the Cavs. He's averaging like 17 points. He's been fine. He's a play finisher. He's not a play creator, but he's a center. You don't.
That's the thing. It's when Mobley plays center, no one cares about his offense. Everybody's like, "Oh, he's fine." It's when he plays next to Allen that people start to worry about the offense.
And that is kind of an issue for that team. Like maybe it doesn't work. And Sarr, I think he's 215, 220. I think he's a little strong. He's a little closer to Chet, and then I think he is. I mean, he played in a man's league. NBL, the thing I always say about them, that is a man's league.
Yep.
He didn't get shoved around. He didn't get pushed off the court. He got back cut more than anything by little small guards, which can happen when you're in a defensive anchor. That can happen. Like teams can exploit moving you. They do it with Mobley. It's a shutdown corner thing. They don't throw teams don't throw it at Sauce Gardner. They throw where they manipulate the offense to throw where he's not at, and he can't be every place at once. Even a guy like Sarr or Mobley or Kevin Garnett. Even Kevin Garnett, I'm not comparing him there, but that's like of that archetype of guy, that's like the all-time number one.
Yeah,
Kevin Garnett. And Kevin Garnett's teams weren't always number one in defensive efficiency because sometimes they would have Wally Szczerbiak on the team, and like, what's he supposed to do about that? Sarr defensively is just such an obvious, like, he will be good. All of those guys I mentioned are all, I mean, 3 of them are defensive player of the year candidates, and Claxton or Chet probably will be in the next couple of years.
I think Chet already is that good, honestly.
And then like he's just going to be that. His offense, I keep seeing, he just wasn't given. They didn't run plays for him. He was a bench center. He was a backup. He was a 6-man who sometimes would play 11 minutes a game and he would take one shot. But there were a few games where they kind of ran through him. He has a really quick turnaround, which I like a lot. It's almost Jermaine O'Neal like quick turnaround, quick spins. There are times when he kind of looked like one of those. I mean, the shot looks good. He was pretty consistent. He took a lot. That's more important to me than him making them. What did he actually shoot? I have it right here. Yeah, 33%, 71% from the free throw line. That's fine.
For a 7-1 guy, yeah.
If you replicate those in the NBA, you will not be getting hacked if you're shooting 71% from the line.
Oh no, not a chance.
You're getting hacked if you shoot 61%. Like, he'll do that. He's just really decisive. He's got good touch in like inside 12 to 15 to 10 or that kind of range. Some hooks, some floaters. He's the second best touch big in this class after Khalil Ware, who's a freak, who shot sky hooks. That's why he's a good prospect. Was he shot sky hooks and took people off the dribble and all that stuff. I don't know. I don't feel if Sarr is a full-time 5, if physically he can hold up, I don't really have much concern about his offense. He is obviously an awesome lob target because he's 7'1" and runs like a deer.
I was going to ask you, one of the questions, if there are questions, obviously, is can he be a full-time center?
That's the only question I have about him, really.
So I'll say that, not to be pessimistic because I like him a lot too. What happens if he can't? So the rebounding is not very good right now by the numbers. You can speak to that more if you want to, but that's a potential weakness for him. He's not,
I would say he had a Miles Turner rebounds where he would just box somebody out and not even try for the ball.
So that's good. That's good context.
Sometimes that's not a good thing, but a lot of times it's just trying to start the break. Like a lot of times in games I watched, he would just box somebody out and let Bryce Cotton go. It's Steven Adams rebounding. But there are times when he could fight a little harder. He's not a very good offensive rebounder, which is the thing. Skinny guys are not good offensive rebounders generally.
They are not. I mean,
the only one I can think of is Isaiah Jackson, and Isaiah Jackson is a strange player who doesn't make sense. So
I'm trying to think team building wise too, because the Hawks do have a Kongu who they like a lot, but we'll see. It's more like for the future. If he's a full-time 5, it's so much easier to see what happens. You know what I mean? You drafted a 7'1" guy, you got Jalen Johnson next to him, you have these super athletic, rangy, offensively, it's way easier to see how that works at a high level, like you just laid out. If he's a center, if he has to have a center next to him is the question. So there are certain guys like Jaren's a good example of this, right? Jaren has played center, but also has played next to a center quite a bit. And part of that's his rebounding's not very good. And it's that's one of the debates about Jaren still now is he actually capable of just being your anchor center? Yeah.
Jaren also is and always has been a touch foul guy. He racked up so many fouls.
Yeah.
And Sarr, that's where he's more on the Mobley scale for me. He and Mobley, the only guys I can think of since I've been doing this who are rim protectors who, I mean, for a while, Sarr was averaging more blocks than fouls per game, which is crazy.
Which is crazy for a young guy, especially.
But I think he was still at 3 per 36, 3.5.
Which is really good. I mean,
yeah.
I've, as you might imagine, I've done a lot of foul talk on the show because Kongu has always had a high foul rate, and Capella never fouls ever. He's great at it. He doesn't foul. I don't know how he does it, but he doesn't foul. And it's always been a talking point about that. That's one of the questions. If you're sold on Sarr being a full-time center, I think he's pretty easily the number 1 pick in the draft.
Far and away.
If he's not a center all the time, what do you make of that? Like, what does that look like in the future? More so offensively, because I think defensively at the 4, he would be awesome. It wouldn't really be a worry for me. But offensively, what happens if you have to play center next to him?
Yeah, and the question for the Hawks would be, who is that center? Because Jalen is the 4, and probably will be for a while.
Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. You can get on the playoff action right now when it's 100 times the money at PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. That's right. For example, turn $10 into $1,000 with an entry today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. They have something for every kind of sports fan, from basketball to hockey to League of Legends and everything in between. Also, PrizePicks is the best way to get on the action in more than 30 states across the country. That includes Georgia, as well as California and Texas. PrizePicks also offers injury insurance, so your interest can stay in play even if one of your players happens to be injured. And it's really simple to play there as well. You can make your picks in just a minute or less. It's that easy. It's just huge for me as well, because it's one of the big reasons why I love PrizePicks and I've played there for quite some time now. They have quick withdrawals, they have easy gameplay, enormous selection of stat types and stats in general that will help you make PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app in the marketplace. So download the PrizePicks app right now today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for first-time deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA when you get there. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. People are already asking me if Jalen could play the 3 next to Sarr and Kongu. That's already been talked about this afternoon.
Could you do it in some lineups? Probably, but I'm not putting that in. Those are your 3 guys.
Right. You have 3 guys, but also it's like, yes, all 3 of them can shoot a little, but that's 3 guys. And yeah, defensively, if you try to put, it'd be a lot of fun. You know what I mean? But offensively, I think you're getting the kind of the worst of all of them if they're playing in that spot. That's my short, very broad breakdown of what that would look like. I mean, okay, so let's just say for this hypothetical, Brian, assume he has to or will play a lot of 4. How much of a distraction is that for him offensively? So, like, the Cavs are a good example, right? Let's just use the Cavs. Mobley's a comp. Mobley and Allen, there's been all kinds of ink spilled about their offense with Mobley and Allen playing together.
I think the issue with that kind of pairing, it's unlike Jaren and Steven Adams. Neither one of those guys can dribble, and neither one of them, more importantly, neither one of them is a threat at like 15.
Right.
They're not fading off a pick and pop and shooting like a 2-step in, like, foul line jumper. And I think Sarr is better at that than Mobley.
And also, let's just say, for instance, it's a Kongu. A Kongu is obviously more offensively versatile than a lot of centers are. He is smaller than a lot of centers are. If it's Capella, I think it's kind of a non-starter. I'm not interested in playing personally. I would not be interested in playing Sarr with a center who cannot shoot.
Yeah,
ideally.
You'd be able to speak on this better than I can. I don't know if Clint's going to be there anyway.
No, and look, that's a whole discussion I won't make you have with me. But if they let's just say they settle on Sarr in the next 2 weeks, and that's going to be their guy, I will be surprised if they have Capella and Kongu on the team by the middle of the summer. But anyway, that's a separate discussion. It's more of a, I was just not hypothetical right now because he might be on the team in a few months. But when I've seen skepticism of Sarr, it's this. A lot of it's this. It's like, okay, I think our mutual friend Sam Mussini is more on the, like, he's more of a 4 train. And I've seen other people say he's more of a 5, and I get it. And I think ideally, if he's a 5, I feel way better about him.
Yeah. This is the question, and these are the things that I think holds him back from being a slam dunk #1 pick. The problem is, and it's why I said I've been waiting for someone to catch him since September. There's just nobody. Nobody's.
No, I'm with you. I got more film to watch. You watch a lot more than I have. I'm trying to leave myself a trap door just to, like, hey, I have to watch more of these guys. Because look, I do some general draft stuff, but Alex Sarr was probably the guy I was least prepared on today because the Hawks were supposed to win the lottery. You know what I mean? So I have more to watch on him. But what I've seen so far, I trust you. I trust my eyes. Like, he's the guy I would take right now. It's just, that's my concern that I have seen so far is like, okay, pessimistic scenario, he's got to play the 4. The Mobley comp makes sense to me, but even with Mobley, I'm way more interested in what Mobley looks like long-term as a center than I am playing next to a center. It's just, that's just what it is in the modern NBA. And I think that's maybe the question that you might ask. And maybe that's a Kongu, and they can flip-flop. And maybe that's the trade-off, is that you have a guy who's more of a not necessarily a perimeter-based center. Like, obviously, if you have it's kind of the ultimate. Everyone's looking for a center who can shoot. Like, if you can play Sarr and Porzingis together, like, sure, that'd be fun. But like, there's how many Porzingises are there? One.
There might be one in this draft. What
is there? Oh, Khalil Ware. That's right. You left Khalil Ware. But no,
I really think he can shoot. So that's.
I know you like him. Okay, what else? Okay, I'm looking at my notes. What else?
I don't see any Michigan guys in the top 20.
No, there aren't any Michigan. Anyway, what else are you worried? What else are you? I shouldn't even say worry. What else would concern you about Sarr? As high as you are on him, what else concerns you? Is that or beyond just him not being a full-time center? Maybe. I
think he can go. The motor is good. The motor is good, but he's not. I wouldn't say. It's kind of where I lean in more on the Mobley side of the scale than the Jaren or the Chet. Is he does sometimes just not look to score at all, which is like part of that. I think I do think part of that is the context he's played in, though, because on the FIBA teams he's been on, he was a number one option. Yeah, he was looking awesome last year, and then he played with the men in the Sarr a lot. He played with like a lot of overtime elite guards who. For better or for worse, are overtime elite guards. Yes, and then this year he played with a multiple-time league MVP in Bryce Cotton, who was like a 34 usage guy. So I do think there's that context. But I think I need him – same thing I said when Jaren was drafted, which Jaren has really fixed. Somebody sat him down. I had this in my notes about Jaren. Someone needs to sit him down and tell him you could be Kevin Garnett. And, like, again, I'm not saying these guys – but, like, you could be a 20 game scorer. Like, physically, you are beyond what people can defend. You need to be assertive, and you need to go at the rim. And Sarr can wax and wane on that. He's not a guy. He's not a low post guy. I don't care.
Yeah.
There's like 3 low post scorers in the NBA who have big, get like a lot of usage, and one of them is Jokic, and then one of them is like Jonas Valanciunas. I guess Embiid not as much as he used to. I feel like. But like Jonas, like I don't care. Who gives a shit about low post scoring? It's not something teams do anymore, so I don't care. And then the physicality could be too much. So I worry that I do think it's kind of where the Mobley thing comes from for me. I do like. I guess that's what people were talking about with his offense. I just the flashes are there of like actual turnaround jumpers, a lot of he's got them like hang dribbles he'll come into sometimes and pull up on people. I would recommend anyone, and I think they are on YouTube, to watch his games against G League Ignite where he dominated them.
And that's when I know you were already on him before that.
It was almost as impressive as Wembanyama's games against G League Ignite. Like he destroyed them.
I knew you were already on him before that, but that's when he kind of made the like mainstream leap to be like, hey, this is probably the number one pick of the draft. And Julian Knight wasn't good as we talked about, but that wasn't part of that. That was like he was just really good in those games. And those are actually 2 of the games I've seen. Anyway, I feel like, look, it's May 12th. I'm not committing anything. It will
got like 6 weeks.
It will surprise me if we get to the end of this cycle, and I am not saying if the Hawks make this pick that they should take Alex Sarr. That's kind of where I am right now. It will surprise me if that's not where I am on June 26th. They could trade it. We'll see. You kind of already put in a little bit of context before we get out of here, though. Where do you kind of put him in your personal recent pantheon of draft picks? Alex Sarr, I mean, as we're talking about this at the end. Where is he in like the traditional, let's say traditional number one pick, average, like not Wemby level, obviously, but like,
so let me think here. Compared to that? My number one guy since I've been doing this, 2018, Luka, Zion, who was 2020? No, he was 2021, 2020. Oh, LaMelo Ball.
Was Ant and LaMelo, yeah.
Yeah, LaMelo, Cade, Jaden Ivey. I still believe.
I know you do, but
he was good this year. He was good this year. He
was fine.
He was on a dog shit team. But let's say Chet.
And then Wemby, of course.
So let's go with the best guy in those drafts. So I'll do Luka. I mean,
yes. That's fair to say.
Shea has a higher MVP finish, but we won't go into that.
He does. That happened.
Luka, Zion, Ant. Okay, keep Ant there. Cade.
You got Paolo.
Chet, I'll just say Chet. I think Chet's better. Wemby.
Is he better than any of those guys?
At the
As a
time,
prospect.
yeah, not Cade. Right at the time, no, I would say he's the least of those guys, but he's in the group.
I was wondering compared to like, so that's the last 5-6 years, whatever. 2020 was probably the least. I don't know. Like that was a long cycle too. So we talked about it just endlessly forever and ever and ever. I know you were really high on LaMelo that draft class. That's the one for me. It gets a little bit interesting because like, I was really high on Cade. I know you were too. 2022, I didn't love anyone, but I liked Paolo and Chet a lot. Like I think I felt safer about them than I do about Alex Sarr. I don't know why that is, but so he's not like way down there, but he's not.
I would say I would feel safer about Paolo because Paolo was guaranteed to be like
what
a scorer.
Yeah, he's going to score.
A scorer and like a little bit of creator. I have questions about Paolo as like an upside guy.
Because you're gonna hear people say, and I think it's not insane that Sarr might be the least sexy first number one pick since 2013. That's gonna be out there.
I mean, look. The question is always, how often is the best player in a class not a top 3 pick? Because the 2014 you wanted, I almost said Wiggins, but you realize Embiid was in that draft.
Embiid was there and it would have got number one if he was clean health, and he's still not clean health now. He's never been clean health, but it worked.
Yeah, but 2013, he's certainly better than Nerlens Noel, even pre-injury.
Yes,
kind of similar physically, but Nerlens was just so thin, and then blew his knee out.
And I've always said about that 2013 draft, people remember it worse because of who went number one, and at the time, no one had him number one, so it wasn't like that was. I shouldn't say no one. Anthony Bennett, of course, I'm talking about. That was a surprise pick. That was not supposed to be the guy that went there.
This is a similar class in that. That's why
that would be like if Ron Holland goes. I'm not saying Ron Holland's Anthony Bennett, but that's like if I'm trying to what surprise guy would go number one? Like I don't know if Reed Shepard went number one in the class.
No, I mean he was mocked 3 earlier. The thing is, it's hard. I feel like the NBA is better at that now. Like they're just generally the Brandon Clark guys don't go 23rd anymore. They go
the draft's getting smart generally.
Yeah. The only guy I can think of recently is Whitmore, and Whitmore was a very unique.
That was and it wasn't talent related. People were worried about health and all that stuff with him. It was a weird fall, but
he got. I'll just say he did not. His coaching staff did not do him any favors.
Yeah, no, and that was a weird. That's people always want to know why the Hawks didn't all that stuff. It's because teams were just crossing him off his board. Like he was falling because of that. It wasn't like it was a basketball thing. It wasn't if you watch him on film thing. So anyway,
there were issues.
Yeah, no, I wasn't a perfect player, but by the time you get to the late lottery, it's like, why is this guy still on the board? Anyway, I won't keep you, but
2013 is a good comparison for this because it's just very flat.
That's the one. That's what everybody's been saying. And before that is before our time. 2000 is the other one everybody always talks about as a terrible draft. And
there will never be a worse draft than the 2000 draft. The 2000 draft had like 8 decent NBA players, and it was horrible.
The whole class got annihilated. But so
I'll say this: if this was 1977, Dalton Connect would be the number 1 pick easily, or Klingon.
Edie.
Yeah.
Why would
those would be the top 3 picks if this was in the 70s because they were the most productive college guys.
Yeah, and Edie's an all-time great college basketball player. He is.
And could be a first-round pick, and I wouldn't late 20s pick, and I'd be fine with it.
We agree, and I will just tell you on this podcast to sign it off. I got multiple people ask me today if he should be in play at number 1 overall. So that's where we are in the mentions. The answer is no, of course. But and I like Zach Edey, but not no. Brian, thank you for being here. I'm going to probably beg you to come back at some point to do more deep divey stuff and not try to answer every question on one podcast.
Talk about Isaiah Crawford, you mean?
Sure. I mean, by the way, the Hawks don't currently have a second-round pick, which is challenging, but they could buy one. They're always available, so we'll get into that later. Anything to plug? I know you got Patreon and things.
Same stuff, yeah. Patreon. I have less on my capsule board than I usually do at this time because I have been deliberately not burning myself out. So I think that's been good. Last year did not go great for me in that regard in multiple ways. And I just need to pace myself better with this stuff. So I am.
You got 6.5 more weeks. You're fine. Everything's.
Yeah, I feel excited to get a bunch of work done in the next few weeks, and I'm not dreading having to. I'm not killing myself to make sure I get something written up on the 71st prospect.
That's a fair thing to do. I wouldn't worry too much about that. We all got time, and as for everyone listening to this show, I'll be having much more draft content. I was going to do that anyway. I mean, I think people who listen to this podcast for a long time will know I always do lots of draft content. When you have the number one overall pick, it becomes even more so. So I will be doing lots and lots of draft talk.
It's a nice departure on this show, honestly, because we usually talk about when we talked about Kobe Buffkin a lot last year, both pre and post draft, and it was
we did, and even some of the guys we talked about today were going to be on my list for the 10th pick, and now the list is going to be a lot. I would say most of the time, the next 6 weeks, we won't be doing a lot. We won't talk about as many players at number one as we did today. I wanted to cast a wide net on purpose. I knew you'd be able to do it with me, and I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you for being here. As for everybody else, please subscribe. Check out Brian's work across the board, Patreon, Twitter, all those things. And we'll see you all next time.